Spinning. Hello and welcome back to the AME's Digital Culture Speaker Series. Today we've got with us Matthew Schafman. He's going to be delivering business insights and growing the UX ecosystem at Neudesic, and he's going to be telling us about it. So for the past 10 years, he's had different leadership roles at Neudesic, the last one being the Senior Director of IDX, which is Ideation and Design. And so he's going to be discussing the UX ecosystem at Neudesic. So thanks for joining us, Matt.
Awesome.
Take it away.
Thank you. Like Robert said, my name is Matt Schafman. Been at Neudesic for 10 years, which is odd because I think the average lifespan for most people are around 3 years, and I must have something wrong with me. But I think the testament of that is, what we do at Neudesic is it's consulting based, and you get to meet a lot of customers, big customers. And I think what it feels like is that I've had maybe 5 or 6 jobs in a year. Every time, every year I have some kind of new customer that I'm trying to handle and show them that there's a better way, and we work through those values and their values and my values, and we align. So now I got to figure out how to do this. There you go. So there's so much to get through. I'm going to talk about me. I'm going to talk a little bit about me, not too much. I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about you, and I'm going to talk about us. So you'll see what that means, by the way. So this is about me. I'm a big jerk. But growing up in Illinois, moved around a lot. I was in the military for 8 years. I was in Navy Mobile Construction Battalion, mostly on the East Coast and in South American type countries. But, I'm going to go through these things and you're going to go, why are you telling me this stuff? And I think it's what it is that it depends on it shapes your life. People go to school, they learn a bunch of stuff, they come out and they want to get a better job. They want to get a good job, especially when you're spending a ton of money on colleges and you want to get the best job as you can. But I would say that most of the time when you're growing up, even in high school, even in junior high and anywhere else, you have shaped your life to the point where you are today. And you're going to keep continuing to shape that life and your perspectives, and you're going to keep learning. And I think that's the one thing that I take out of, graduating from college and people that graduate. I meet a lot of people that graduate from ASU, and I just want to hammer that fact of you're constantly learning. You will not come out of this college completely, knowing it all. Obviously that shouldn't be assumed, but when it is, it's apparent. But when you're coming out and you're looking for that perfect job, know that there probably isn't that perfect job right away, and you'll probably have to meet people and explore and keep learning and understanding them. So I'll go through that too. I went to UMass Dartmouth. It's a college of visual performing arts, probably very similar to what you guys are doing at ASU. I didn't get a master's. I think back then it was hard enough to find the degree that I wanted to. So, that was way back in, 1996. And, there weren't too many UX programs back then. I think Carnegie Mellon and UNBC. I had, and I was kind of on the East Coast anyway. I wasn't really going west, so I was trying to find something around there. So UMass Dartmouth had a pretty decent program for visual performing arts, but it had a lot of electronic stuff. So it had like the Photoshops and the digital imaging of photography, photos, digital photography just kind of starting to creep out. They had like a 1 meg, pixel cameras that were out at that time. But, but we're doing 3D animation. Maya just came out, there's Toy Story came out. Everybody wanted to work at Disney. And I had a couple friends that did go, but that wasn't really my passion. I think my passion out of school was to understand practicality of what I'm learning and I wanted to apply it to bettering people, creating experiences for others. So maybe at the time, it wasn't necessarily taught like that, but I did definitely thought of the stuff that we were doing as, I didn't want to create just junk. I wanted to create things that actually people could use. So that may be a small testament of where I'm at today. I played music. I moved to Arizona and I ended up being in 3 bands. This also shaped my life in probably a negative way, but for the most part, it was a fun experience. You have a lot of people that you deal with, an industry that you've dealt, that is hard to deal with. And I think, just having the different kinds of industries, I met a lot of people in different like news industries too. So being on TV or understanding how that all worked. Every time you experience something, it's another notch in your belt to be able to understand the processes of those particular industries. And I think that's valuable. Coming out of school, you may not have a ton of like experience with industry, with different types of industries and verticals. Maybe you worked at Best Buy or something growing up, but that's a retail space. That's something that you should understand. And coming out of that, getting into consulting, hey, I was in the retail space. I understand how that all works, even though, if I was like a clerk or something, but it doesn't matter. You understand that space. And I think everything that you learn, you should retain and keep building on that. I kicked out those dudes and I got my own dudes. A big family right now with 4 kids and a wife, and we're all having a bunch of fun. But it's another learning curve for me, obviously. And I have like 4 under 9. So it's a lot, but, these are the things that will shape your life. Obviously, hopefully you guys don't have 4 kids yet, but when you're coming into the world, know that there are people that have these things, and know that when you work with people in these industries, they're different. So hopefully that, especially in user experience, I think it's the main rule is to understand that person, empathize with that person who you work with and who you're trying to serve. This is where I met Pavan, my friend Pavan at Martial Arts. Again, like just kind of going through those things. This is a new chapter in my life. I can pretty much cut up my life as far as in these like very clear chapters. And I think the martial arts chapter is what's happening to me right now. But it definitely it helps improve my discipline, improve my understanding of purpose. And I think that's something that we all should learn how to do, especially, coming out of this, and you're studying all these things that everybody's telling you to do. And you're going, I don't know what to do with this what am I going to do? And then you end up just bartending or something. And we don't want that for a long term, but that's an avenue. But, so let me get into about them. So the family that I work for, and I do consider this a family. I've been here long enough. I've seen people come and go. But the people that have stayed and people that haven't, I've appreciated and all of their help throughout that experience. And I've appreciated helping them, and hopefully they've appreciated me helping them too. But IDX, it's ideation design, like Robert said. We are a UX team that used to be called UX. And, several years ago, my mentor, Chris McCurry, and I, we were kind of toying with the idea of changing the name. And I think, he came up with a great idea and of changing it to ideation and design, because we weren't UX. I think we had a problem with that idea and for anybody that doesn't know, UX, it's user experience. And user experience is a tough one because it's if you have a human being, if you're a human being, you are a user of something, and you are having an experience. So we aren't UX. We are people that create better UX for people, or hopefully create better UX. If not, you're creating a UX, you're just creating a bad UX. So we didn't want to be associated with that, because a lot of times in sales and those kind of situations that you get put into, you're being asked how much UX is on this project, and you're supposed to go, well, as much as it takes, at this point. But that's a bad answer, obviously. So what we're trying to do is create this process that eliminates the idea of user experience as a person, but user experience of a collective responsibility for everybody, right? It's not my responsibility solely. I have a part of it. I have to understand users and understand their behaviors and work through them. But you also have developers that can easily kill user experience as we work forward into the solution. So making sure that that is a more of a collective responsibility in our teams. But IDX in itself is there to, understand it and help shape it and guide. Our values at Neudesic are very specific. There's 5 of them. It's P Diddy. So if you see the PDITI, it's acronym P Diddy. Passion, discipline, innovation, teaming, and integrity. For some reason, integrity is on the last one. So I don't know if that was by choice or not, but I think the idea is I take these very seriously, and I when new people come in, I drill them on this sometimes, and I want them to think about their guiding principles. And if you want to use Neudesic as their guiding principles for life, that's fine. And I don't think these fall short of a life principle if you wanted to use them. But for the most part, Neudesic, if you don't have passion, if you're not disciplined, if you're not innovating in the way, or if you're closed-minded and you're kind of shutting all the ideas down, that's not having the Neudesic value. We want to explore those ideas, and we don't want to be able to, we don't want to close those out. So, but I think the last 2 are important to me. When you have your team, and we have very smart individuals. But you're only as smart as your own self. And I think you'll find that in school as well, where you're doing some stuff, you do a project, maybe you opt not to do the group project and just do it yourself. I don't even know if that's an option, but having the ability to work with others will extend your life with most work out in the field. Being able to accommodate, negotiate, to be able to recognize people are struggling, recognize the person that actually has a good idea. And it isn't a fight to adopt, shouldn't be a fight to adopt that idea from that smart person, but just because you want to have the idea. So that's the part where I think setting aside your feelings about being the best in the group, teaming in our regard, everybody's smart. So it's like whoever, can articulate that idea and we latch onto it, we should. And having that integrity, we don't want that idea to be slandered or maybe denied, canceled out. So having that and making sure that you're doing what's right for the team, not for yourself. And that's one of maybe my values in life is that, if you're not really helping other people, then you're not helping yourself at that point. There's plenty of people out in the world that need help. There's companies, there's individuals, trying to get jobs or needing your work, needing your expertise. But being able to help somebody else will in turn, most likely, eventually come back to you. It makes you feel good at least. maybe down the road you'll get returned a favor, that you've done for somebody else. So it shouldn't have to come to that, but you should be seeking that. But I think there's always this good feeling byproduct that comes to helping other people, if that makes sense. Anybody have any questions about values? Do you think you've thought about your values, your guiding principles? I know my personal ones is my body, my family, and my freedom. That's kind of the things that I think about whenever things get thrown to me. Those are the things that I want to make sure that, those people, those things are taken care of. So, if anybody has values, if anybody has some values that they've been thinking about, if not, you should probably think about them, because
Matt, I think
things. Yep. Go ahead, Pavan.
I think the values that you identified here are somewhat reflective of, we went through an exercise identifying a school vision and mission, and there are some synergies here. We talk about innovation, we talk about collaboration, we talk about impact. The words we use are slightly different, but there is synergy, and I can share this talk.
No, that's awesome, because that's the thing that you can start lightly judging people on, right? I can easily, if I have a problem with some behaviors, I just have to go to my P. Diddy and go, I can tell you where you're faulting. What am I be doing wrong? You're not teaming, or you're not really passionate about anything, or you don't feel like, maybe you're always late, your discipline's late. I don't know, whatever it is. But having that to bounce against, I think, helps out a lot when you're making decisions and knowing what to fix in yourself, possibly what to fix in somebody else. But, and I think by abiding by those values, you're going to move forward, especially when everybody agrees with those values and we're all moving forward with those values. And it comes to this, it's alignment of purpose. I've probably worked on 30 to 40 different kind of companies throughout 10 years. And not every company has the same purpose. So you can't apply everything that you've learned and apply it the same way every time. You can have methods and you can have, certain strategies, but their purpose is going to be slightly different than the next person, right? Even if you have two power companies, their purpose would be slightly different. And you want to make sure, as a consultant and a user experience person, to be able to kind of mold yourself into that situation. I find that very helpful when somebody's able to absorb their culture and absorb their purpose. They become more of a better consultant than a person that has all the skills in the world, knows how to do everything, but does it the one way that they know how to do it. And that's it. I'm not going to listen to you. I don't care about how you've done it before. I'm the consultant. I'm going to change it, but you'll be up against some adversity if you try doing that. And you'll do that anyway if you're at a product company or a consultant company or a service company. You're going to come out and you should absorb and observe what they're doing, so you don't come in with a completely skewed purpose that isn't really helping anybody else on the team. Now you can do your tactics of changing people's minds about maybe your purpose, or there's something that you think is valuable for them. I'm not saying don't try to change, or don't offer that purpose to them. And just, you have to kind of figure it out when you get in there, especially when you're changing jobs like I do every 6 months, maybe a year. I'm changing that perspective a lot. That's just the Neudesic way. You got to figure it out. A lot of people get stuck in a project for a long, long time, and it takes them a long time to switch that context to another project, especially when they've been doing it. It's just like having a full-time job for 2 or 3 years. they have to switch their context to a different type of industry, different type of solution possibly. And it's another mode of ramp up. There's no different than moving from one job to the next at that point. And I think, that purpose is driven by that vision. So if that company has a vision of going, you want to understand that. That's the first thing you want to ask. What is your vision? If they don't have a vision, then that's an opportunity to help them find their vision. Now we're going to get into, so if you notice at the top, we're talking about people. And now we're going to get kind of in that process. And I think I screwed these slides up. So I'm going to apologize right now. I have another slide that actually should have preceded this, but a holistic approach is really kind of what I was, I don't know if most of you are on, but Neudesic in itself, I think, started off very tech savvy first. We have a lot of really smart technical people that are implement a lot of really hard things. And, as we got more mature about what we're doing about that, we kind of swung over here in that human part where, the objectives were kind of dictated down. We were hired, we already know our objectives. We want you to implement SharePoint. Okay, great. So implement SharePoint, nobody uses it, right? Yeah, you can install a tool. Nobody's going to come to it unless you have purpose around that and understand why you would need it. So kind of tool first kind of thing where now we go in with that understanding objective, business objective, understand there's the needs of a journey of a flow or a person and articulate the pain points throughout that journey, and then breaking it down into a value stream and understand cost around that process. So I think that's going to be like the next level of, when you're getting into technical and you just want to create that widget because you think it's wicked cool and everybody, thinks it's wicked cool, but they don't really understand if it's going to make any money for us or save us any money or drive customers in, and does it do what we really want it to do? SharePoint, I gave them SharePoint. They just didn't use it. They're stupid users, and that's not what we should be thinking. We should be understanding how they work today, their current state, and how SharePoint could possibly accommodate that flow. So user-centered first versus, tech capabilities. But there is a business objective there. It's like, I want people, I need this centralized place where I can keep all my files, because when people, like for retention issues, when people leave, all these files are all over the place and Dropbox and this and that. And people put them there because I don't give them a thing for it. And that's why we got the SharePoint, and then people don't use it anyway. It's a big circle of death. But so if we just slow down and understand what they're doing and why they're putting stuff into those other systems first, it's because, and then you marry that up with that business driver. Now we have the ability to create a solution with technical capabilities to do what we both want to do. And you don't want to slow down the human performance, because unless you're automating it, human performance is what's going to drive your value up and down, your costs and how long it takes you to do that process. So that's the business part. How do I change people to do what I want them to do faster or with higher quality and higher confidence and things like that? And my group at Neudesic IDX, that's essentially what we do. We go in and understand that. And we're not just doing it because people are like, I don't understand that widget. It's like, okay, great. But there's another thing above that, right? It's not just that. There's other factors that will affect their performance. So we have a 4D method that I've been following for a long time. If you ever come to UX and AZ, I say it about 15,000 times. So, being able to hit that home is this process is not a technical process. This process is actually fairly agnostic to anything. This method is fairly agnostic to any process. You can apply this process to folding clothes. I think that's one of my funnier analogies of this. Doing your laundry, you have to understand what kind of clothes you have in your hamper. You have to discover that. You have to sort through it and define what's lights and darks. And then you're going to understand how I'm going to sort them into the washer. I need to deliver. I have to put them into the washer. I have to put the right soap in it. I have to do all that stuff. And that's, kind of like design, or maybe it's my priority of like, oh, I need these jeans because I need jeans tomorrow, things like that, apply it and then deliver a folded, maybe if you don't put it in the drawer, I don't know, put it in your basket like I do, just until it goes away and goes back in the hamper. But, you have a process there, and it's a fairly common one. Everybody does it. It doesn't have to be hard, but this is what you're going to do. You're going to discover and educate your definition. You're going to instruct your design, which guides your delivery, which then informs that discovery again. If you stop at the delivery and not look at it again, you're not doing your due diligence of understanding, did it work or not? I don't think you really truly deliver anything until it's actually created business value. A lot of times a consultant or an agency or somebody will come in and design something. They'll do some decent work in discovery and define, and they'll design the whole thing and then pass it over the hill and leave. And then who cares whatever happens after that? That's what they pay me to do, right? But they tried to implement it and it did nothing for anybody. So we never learned, from that. We never, understood that empathy. We just created some designs with some heuristics, maybe light heuristics involved on it, a lot of biases, and a lot of assumptions. And then it got delivered and they didn't like it. And then the company will never call you back again because you didn't do a good job. But what you didn't do is that you didn't sell them on the fact that you can't get it 100% right away. You need to work through it, but you need to work fast and efficient. So you don't want to do this big upfront design thing. You be more agile and work through those problems. Oops, did not want to do that. There you go. So it's fairly simple. Four things. I like things that I can remember, especially that's the same, letter in front of everything. So, but for the most part, it helps guide my understanding of where a company is and where a project is. If somebody comes to me with comps, okay, that's fine. We got comps, we got designs, we have something to do. We could go to our users and start testing user testing on those designs and gains a little bit of empathy around it. I don't have a lot of context with it because I wasn't involved in the discovery or the definition of why you picked those designs, but I can for sure take those designs and against your needs of what it needs to do. I can go and talk to those users. And if you say you don't want to do that and you want to deliver it, then we're going to hit it again right here. We're going to discover and, what really truly get educated on why they were bad designs, So every time you cross this middle, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but every time you cross the center, you're validating and empathizing with that design and that discovery or that information. So it's infinite loop. I had this in a circle at one time and just didn't hit home. So I made it a infinity. And there's a bunch of stuff out there that's kind of similar with maybe some different words to it, but I wanted something that had 4D in it. So I did that. Anybody have any questions about that? And I only see 6 people, so I'm not sure if that's still, if that's it, but.
Matt, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you often have difficulty with the clients, like kind of agreeing with like when you get to that empathy part and you're coming up with your definitions and designs, like, yeah, do you have problems with clients that don't like see eye to eye with how you're reading the situation?
That's an amazing question. I was hoping somebody would say that, but so yes, if you don't involve them, right? If this is a siloed version of this 4D, and I'm doing it out and over there, and they're over there, and I'm not really involving maybe some checkpoints, but I'm not really getting them involved in that process, you're going to have a lot of adoption issues. When essentially I'm to the point where I have to sell you on my vision because of all the stuff that I learned and you didn't, you know? So bringing that client, the closer you can get the client involved in that process will allow us to be more aligned with that purpose. They are, back to that slide, just alignment of purpose. They know my empathy towards their purpose. They know that their purpose is my purpose at this point. I do not want them to fail. I do not want them to, to get mad at me for the most part. Sometimes they get mad at me anyway, but as far as like what I'm doing here is not because this is just what I want to do. I'm really truly thinking about getting you a raise, getting you promoted, understand, how you get more customers for you, make you the good guy. I'm the guy behind the curtain. I do not want that praise. It's awkward, and I just want to make it better for you. And so it's assuming that, and frankly, I'm teaching them how to do these things. Again, like I said, this thing isn't for just technology building. This is for everyday life, and to go through this process and teach them how to think about it. It only helps strengthen their management skills or wherever they're coming from, if they want that. However, they've seen it in a UCD way. They've seen it in a user-centered design way. So I guess to answer your question, you will get in that scenario if you don't involve your stakeholders in a way that allows you to teach them as you go through it. Again, you'll have those ones that are like, I'm busy. That's why I hired you. So we got to figure out some ways to communicate, over communicate, and have checkpoints more frequently. It's a maturity level deal. So essentially, I don't know if you can see this, if it's backwards. I should have put this one in there actually. And maybe I'll put it up on UX and AZ or on somewhere that you guys can get it. Most of the time when an immature company that you haven't worked with before usually are there for you to produce. Right. They want you to produce something for them. They've already thought of some vision. They've already thought of some definitions of what's valuable to them, and they just want you to produce. 41% of all opportunities for most companies, those people want you just to build it. Right. However, what I'm there to do is to do that, but also teach them how to get there. Right. As soon as you start adding workshops and adding design, participatory workshops and maybe design sprints or something like that, you're now moving them into a level 2 maturity of a connector. Being able, and this, that's a hard concept for people to go. It's like, because they think they're wasting time understanding things. And I don't, I just want you to build it, But the problem is, you move slow to go fast at the end of the day. You slow down a little bit and understand that definition better and have a workshop or two. You'll get better results than if you just start designing something out and produce something. So we're trying to move their mentality up, and then eventually you're in an architect, and then you're in a scientist type of realm of like A/B testing and things like that. And that gets into, definitely more money, but the more success that you have understanding your customers is what you're trying to do, is trying to, get more of them or increase their spending habits, things like that. Then you get into visionaries. Only 5% of the companies you probably deal with are actual visionaries. They say they are, but they're not. You could probably guess which ones are the visionaries based on the stock market right now. But, but we want to make all companies get to that visionary maturity. So does that answer your question? Is that Lauren? I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
No problem. Long-winded answer of no, you shouldn't do that. No, sure. See, this was the screen that's supposed to be in the beginning. People, processes, and tools. This is where I was kind of getting at, like understanding your people, understanding their processes, and understanding the tools that they're working with. So I won't go too much on this slide, but that's where we're kind of working. Now we're getting into that tools. Skills matter, right? Like nunchuck skills. And I don't know if anybody's seen that movie. So if you haven't, then the joke is kind of lost. But I think what happens a lot of times when you're working through a university type of scenario is that you're learning and gathering a bunch of methods and skills that can help you. When you get out, you have these things you latch onto, right? In my world, Photoshop or something, or XD. I know XD. Okay, great. You know XD, Adobe XD. Great. That's a great tool. Problem is when I'm looking through your portfolio with that tool is I don't see any, method, clear purpose, things like that. Technically how to use a tool. Now let's use the tool for the process, bettering the process or bettering people's lives. So I think of tools as, if you went from like university terms, tools to me are 100 level type of things to learn. They are very specific in their application. They do probably one or two things like these screwdrivers. Unless you're me, I just use them as hammers or not screwdrivers, but wrenches. I use them for other things, but that unintended uses. But but when you're going through and going through some of the design schools, they're at least for me, very specific on the tool set and understanding how the ins and outs of it. Like things like Illustrator, it takes you years to really master if you even master it. But it's what you can do with those tools. The methods of the method of gradation, somewhat of a method, or pixelating things to a point where you can print them, if you're in the print world. But for me, tools are like 100, methods are 200, where a method could be a contextual inquiry, or and I'm blanking on any other methods. Design sprint. It's kind of a method, but it's also a strategy if you think about it. But there's a bunch of methods inside of a design sprint. You got mapping, you got value streaming, journey mapping. You have sketching, participatory, methods that help us get more ideas. You have how might we sticky note exercises. Those are all methods to me to get to the strategy of a design sprint, to get a design out in a week. And they put a bunch of methods together, and they put it in a string, and they put it on days, and everything else. That's the strategy. We're going to go through the strategy of a design sprint to come up with an idea. And there's other strategies too. That's just something very quick, but, having the ability to maybe some data insights would have some methods attached to it, but the true meaning of the strategy is to explore the data and be able to pull out certain insights. Could be a strategy. And then you get into some verticals, which is 400 level. So you can know the tool, you can know a bunch of methods, anything in this book, universal principles of design. These are all methods that you can learn. And you can put them all together in a strategy, but they may fall short if you don't understand any verticals. Like, is this for a power company? That's a little different, maybe. having that 400 level, I think, is going to come when you start getting experience with different types of industries. But that's kind of why back earlier in the presentation, you've already gone through other industries. You've gone through the educational industry, in some ways. So if you were ever going to work with ASU or maybe University of Phoenix or, God forbid, U of A, being able to help that industry because you kind of lived it for a while, right? You kind of understand it. And Neudesic has a ton of industries. We pretty much work with any industry that's out there, from logistics and power, like I mentioned before, education and finance. Wish I had a list of them, but pretty much any kind of industry that's out there today: oil and gas, mining, stocks. I guess that falls under finance, but we deal with a lot of those things. And as UX people, and we have to kind of understand that, like, it would be hard for me to go to from a logistics, like moving cars problem, over to retail. Maybe, that's a kind of a large jump. There isn't a lot of commonalities in their terminology and things like that. And that's one thing that complicates the job at Neudesic. It's just because you know the tool, just because you know how to code, C# or Xamarin and this and that, you don't really understand the industry. You may have a problem coming up with solutions for the industry. So you have to learn a lot more, not just your tool, And so if anybody have any more questions about that? Again, you name an industry I haven't done. There's probably a couple, but that wouldn't be fair.
Let me just chip in with a time check, Matt. So we have 15 more minutes left, but maybe if you can finish in 5, so we listen to questions. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm gonna give out this link. It will be public. It's a Trello board out there, and it has a lot of that 100 foundational stuff that I think people should learn. I'll take out some of the Neudesic language, but as far as like being able to do certain things while you come out, that would be helpful, especially when you're trying to create, like, here's a design system strategy. That has a lot of methods inside of it, atomic design methods and things like that. So I can share this out to the community and see if they, and you can use it as a point to go, oh, I don't know what client business strategy is. So I'm almost actually done, so we're pretty good with time. This is kind of maybe like if you step back on IDX and Neudesic IDX, we serve these visions of customer experience, increasing more customers, getting them to buy more, getting them to move from there to there, a lot of physical interaction kind of stuff, kiosks and IoT and stuff like that. And then you have the workplace experience where you're dealing with very controlled environments of your own work. For instance, any back office work at ASU would be considered workplace experiences. Possibly you as a student is kind of a workplace experience because you're dealing with maybe Blackboard or some kind of internal tool that you all need to deal with, especially now with COVID and trying to, do that. But those are the two main things I think we do, and we apply user experience methods to those two things. These are the business things that we want to try to affect. Workplace, we want to get them more efficient. We want to automate through something. We want to move people's bodies to go over here and work together, things like that, where customers were dealing with the outside public, and it's a lot different. But our strategies amongst that is very similar, where we're understanding the business part of things, value streaming and doing competitor analysis and things like that, and guiding the business on what values are the best to start with, and have that kind of narrative. And then our strategy, once we understand that, we're going to get into, and this is kind of generic, very high level. So I realize there's not a lot of like detail in this because I don't have like 3 hours, but then we get into this thing where my team is heavily involved in story development. Remember when I told you I wanted to remove the whole UX thing? I want to create story development teams, which involves people that care about users, and they all should care about users in that story development team, because they're going to create the guidance for a tactical developer that's going to be in, app modernization and data, and artificial. We're going to use AI, and we're going to effectively understand the digital workplace, and maybe like that's value streaming a particular flow or a process. We're going to help the developers create speed, create confidence, and create quality by dissecting those big stories and breaking them apart in an agile framework way. I realized I spelled framework wrong, but trying to dissect those epics into smaller stories. If you don't know agile, you probably want to learn it. That would be a very great skill to learn. But essentially, we're here to make those developers. Now, if we didn't have that kind of layer between there, then the developer would get these massive ideas, and then they just kind of go off and do stuff, right? And oftentimes that will not yield the best of results. It will yield a result, but it may not hit the mark. Anybody have any questions about agile, or if you have classes, or if there's a bunch of stuff outside of ASU, you can go and get certified if you want to get into that kind of stuff, more around the project management part of it. But I believe everybody that's involved in the story should be involved in the UX. Output of that is a direction with interaction design, with content, with the CSS and how it's going to look. You're managing the design system in there. So it has a lot to do. It's very thin orange line, but there's actually a lot to do inside that particular that space. And I made it go all the way across because you really you're going to supply all different types of direction to all different type of tactical work. And it kind of marries up against the 4D, because you're kind of discovering a bunch of stuff at the top, defining it as we're getting into the business analysis. And then when we're getting into design, we're in story development, and then we're going to deliver that stuff. Tactics, strategy, and vision for the most part. Now about you guys. I believe this is one of the most important slides, and we'll get through it fairly quickly. If you were, a while back, I was sitting at a bar with a friend of mine. He was kind of griping about how he's not being billed. Being billable in our consultant world means getting on a project. Whoops. And he's like, how do I get billable? How do I be more billable? And so we started kind of dissecting that problem a little bit. And I know he has the skills. Everybody knows he has the skills. He had perceived value from other people, understand that. But the biggest problem was he wasn't available. He wasn't able to travel, which cuts down on the availability of how you go and do something. If you're not, I would say more in the skill area and availability, you're not available to understand that industry yet. And nobody sees you as a person that can do that, right? So it's our job to holistically hit all these marks to get to the value in the middle. We need the drive to learn it. We need the drive to be there. We need that exposure and expose other people to knowing that I'm available. We need them to prove it to that other person. So I've yet to break this Venn. I am a person that likes Venn diagrams, but this one is been tried and true for any time I'm trying to coach somebody and trying to get them to realize where they are in here, so that maybe they don't have a ton of skill, and maybe they have a shit ton of skill, but they don't know. Nobody has the wherewithal to know that they have that skill. Like, they never proved it. They never spoke. They weren't around. I think the biggest thing for UX and AZ, it actually creates a platform for people to, if they want to do presentations, and allows them to be in front of a bunch of other people that aren't speaking, and they start becoming an authority, or at least somebody that has studied something, and now they just showed it and shared it, again, helping other people realize this information. And they proved it to everybody in that room that they are at least more of an authority on the subject than the people in the audience. So they were available. They had the skill of speaking. They had a skill of learning about something they wanted to tell other people, and then they told it to people. So it kind of runs all over the place. So if you wanted to do an exercise of like understanding what you have actually done coming out of school, you will have 20-year plus people in front of you that probably never went to college, but they've been working in this industry and this thing for a long time. So just know that if you want to get others to perceive more value from you, then you have to do the work and do those things and show them that you have it. So, anyway, any questions on that? I know that's a big one, but, you can do that by branding. So, yep.
So I think, Matt, maybe the question and maybe the things that you could tell us is how would, we have these ongoing conversations about how do we do industry relevant projects and capstones? How do we start infusing some industry sensibilities into student work? We've always been wanting to do that, but it's been a question of willing partners who can, spend time mentoring students. So I know that you do have some mechanisms, and you do work with students in the GIT program.
I do. GIT and HSC. Yep.
Yeah. Which are not exactly our programs, but we are allied.
Yeah, you have very similar stuff, but not exactly. Yeah. That's why I like your group, actually, that your group melds a lot of them together. So I don't really understand the differences, why they're different, but So,
we have one of our capstone instructors right here on the call, Byron, and maybe I'll put Byron on the spot. Byron, if you have a question about how to get students looped into, not just Neudesic specific, but generally speaking, if you want to create, some ways in which industry relevant projects start filtering in, how should we prepare students, and how should we have these kinds of conversations where industry relevant projects may not always be about what you want to do, but about delivering value to the customer.
Absolutely. There's a lot of boring work out there.
Right. Yeah. So I don't have a specific question, but we literally just ended our capstone class before this. And right now we're going through this kind of ideation stage of, having students develop and pitch ideas, and we're critiquing. So there's definitely, we're trying to model this iterative kind of design process, even just at the stage of what's the problem you're trying to solve, or what's this, what's the intent, who's the audience for this system. So I guess I do feel like there's probably some additional sort of formality that perhaps we are modeling, but we don't maybe even have the right language to describe. So I think it would be fantastic to have, I don't know. I'm not sure what the connection is exactly, how that would work, but get our students thinking in these ways at an earlier stage, because we're asking them to work as groups.
Yep.
But they don't necessarily have the full understanding of really what that entails, especially as things get larger and larger and more complex and longer term.
I agree. We've talked as Neudesic to you guys about that, and we have internal type projects that we wouldn't do the customer facing project most likely, but there are a bunch of things we were thinking about doing before COVID hit. So then it just puts it all into like this wrench where now everybody's being cautious about doing something, but they've shifted their mind to making money instead of doing stuff else. But I can say that though, saying the COVID thing, there's a ton of industries that are hurting, and there's a ton of small businesses, meaning that they're like 500 and below, 500 people and below, that's considered small business. And there's 550,000 small businesses in Arizona. Maybe you start cutting them up into industries, into commonalities of problems, and maybe you can create products or create a solution for a group of that particular, those people and offer that, possibly. I was mentioning to my UX and AZ group, which I'll just get to that. If you're able to go out and just pick up, like kind of what Pavan and I, like I do a lot for the Dojang to, the karate studio to help them succeed. And I do it because I want them to succeed, and I think there's a ton of businesses and inefficiencies that people have severely figured out when COVID hit. And the people that weren't able to adjust failed. And the people that had that wherewithal to go, I'm going to do what it takes, succeeded. But I think to help the people have ideas of what to do, that would be a good thing in my mind to take hurting industries from this type of pandemic. And maybe it's too late now, but there will always be another one. Hopefully not, but maybe we figure out something for the future kind of thing, or we've discovered those pain points and those inefficiencies, and we're gonna kind of create this solution around it, and use that. Maybe it's not, you're not being asked to do something for somebody, but you actually go and observe that and go, hey, hair cutting industry or whatever you call it. We have a platform that could help you, hey, elementary school and high school people, I wish you had a platform that could teach people online. That would have been cool instead of dealing with Zoom, something holistic, something that actually could be used, and successful. But I think now we may not, I don't know. But go ahead.
Sorry. I think, it has always been the intent of our department and some of, the senior faculty, Lauren, who asked, some questions. It was written down a long time ago that we want capstones to be embedded in local something, local businesses or other local stakeholders. It's just been hard to follow up. And we sort of went down the path of, all right, let's just do some things internally. But that was always the thinking. And I think you'll find a lot of interest in the department. If, I'll follow this up with my faculty, and it's an ongoing.
Yeah, and something I really appreciated from your last few slides, especially, was this concept of value. And I think thinking about the lines of value proposition and what students have to offer to the space is where we can do a little bit more soul searching. A question I have for you, Matt, is what would you say to the student who feels like they have no skills, have no value to offer? Like, what should they focus on? How do they motivate? How would you motivate to have them bring up their skills so that they can have a greater value or perceived value?
That's where coaching, a good coach, comes into play.
Absolutely.
Somebody that can recognize the good of anything inside of somebody. Like I was saying, I have a student, I think ASU before the COVID, I've talked to him a couple times since then, but he wants to get into video and filmmaking and things like that. But then he was kind of like, the UX thing seems kind of cool too. So, and I was trying to correlate a lot of the things that he does know, and it's very similar. There's some correlation to UX. And yeah, I think you just got to be creative when it comes to that. If you dealt with people in another job, or you have good communication skills, you already have one of those things, the people, process, and tools, and those kind of skill sets. If you're not a talker, maybe you're a person that's able to understand processes better and more kind of like a low key person in that process. But I think you have to kind of dive into them, like they're gonna, by talking, it kind of gets into like this social worker kind of situation. But yeah, I have a lot of people that are like, I just don't know how to do this stuff. And then you just have to resort back to the tools and the strategies and methods. Start learning how to do that. Let's do this. Let's take a project. So a lot of times I'll just say, maybe I'll do let's pick an application that isn't good, something that we deem as something that needs help, or we go and, like I said, like, let's go down the road and look for industries, like a barbershop, or like like a tailor or seamstress or something, and understand their pain points. You can go and do that back in the day. Now it would be a little tougher because you got to go talk to somebody. But, like any process with people is the same thing. It's just smaller, or the needs are a little bit smaller. Maybe the risk is smaller, but to them, to that person, that risk is huge. So they're just holding on, and any help you can offer that person to identify pain points and then fill them up with a particular solution, even at that smaller level, is practicing that. You don't have to go to Deloitte tomorrow and, be successful. There's 550,000 small businesses that could easily be practiced on and shown more value, and it's less risky to be able to do that with them and be able to learn from that industry. And now you just learn from a smaller, it's a big industry, but a smaller person in that industry. So you just start compounding. I mean, taking on stupid jobs is not a bad thing sometimes, because you get to know that stuff pretty intimately. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it totally does. And I'm actually 100% with you. I think a lot of this resonates probably with Pavan and myself both, as we have PhD students, and the types of things we do with them, including doing the stupid projects in order to build our the depth of experience that we can do to seek other larger projects. But you're absolutely right about the coaching as well. A question I might have for you, and also other people on the call, please feel free to ask questions as well. We're almost out of time, I guess, but feel free to ask. How would we coach at scale, right? Given that coaching requires significant investment of energy and time, and we're limited on both.
I think that's when you get into group sessions. You guide the conversation. So now you're into AA stuff, like you get people sitting around in a
How many
circle.
steps do we have now?
Yeah, exactly. four Ds. But I mean, I do that in UX and AZ. We talk about a lot of stuff. People learn from others. I encourage people to speak and present. We could do that at ASU as well. You get people maybe in a Zoom situation, or maybe when we open up, we can get them together, and we have, there's a lot of meetup type of groups that we can do that with, or we can specifically have UX and AZ, very specific ones for ASU. But I think it comes with the community, like I have a bunch of channels for communities. I'm moving to Discord. You can get a lot of help there. I see a lot of people on Facebook coming in with like, I need to test something, and people swarm on it. And so now they're learning from other people's tests. They're learning by participating. it kind of comes down to them. I think you can present the platform to them, but I think you gotta entice them to see that that's valuable for them, which then kind of, that's individual connection or marketing, that's acquisition strategy of like getting people to come to you because you believe you can help them, but you can't go to every one of them and say, I can help you, and then make them believe it, right? Like you kind of have to, I feel like having other people sell that platform is stronger because they're like, hey, Matt did a great job, help me out with something. Come to UX and AZ. There's a bunch of people, and a lot of times there's people there that will give you jobs, or they'll know somebody that needs a job. They work at businesses, they work at places. I get a lot of people that don't have jobs and they're still students, or they don't have a job and they need a job, or they have people that have jobs. And if you're there, then you're there. You got it. You've already a step up on the person that wasn't there. So.
And we'll definitely share this uxandaz.com link with
absolutely.
the student population. And I expect you might even get some personal emails as well about this from some of the students who are interested. I think that's all the time that we've got for today. By the way, on YouTube, we don't have questions, but we do have people who are saying, thank you for this talk. Great advice. Thank you for your presentation today. And I am absolutely with them on this. So thank you so much, Matt, for joining us today. And for everyone else, we'll see you again next week at the Digital Culture